In the heart of the whispering woods, where time seemed to stand still, ancient trees reached towards the sky like gnarled fingers, their twisted branches casting eerie shadows that danced and swirled in the moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the only sounds were the rustling of the wind in the trees and the distant hooting of an owl. Among these shadows, a creature named Golemkin lurked, his presence hidden in the darkness. His skin resembled pale parchment, stretched tight over his bony frame, and his eyes gleamed with the haunting, otherworldly light of wet stones. He was a creature that existed in a realm between man and beast, cursed to live in the shadows, feared and shunned by the forest's other inhabitants. Golemkin was a solitary creature, keeping to himself and avoiding contact with others. He had once been a normal forest dweller, but a terrible curse had transformed him into the creature he was now. The curse had left him with a deep hatred for all living things, and he took pleasure in causing pain and suffering. Despite his monstrous appearance, Golemkin was not without intelligence. He was cunning and resourceful, and he used his abilities to survive in the harsh environment of the whispering woods. He was a master of stealth and deception, and he could move through the forest unseen and unheard. Golemkin was a creature of the night, and he would often emerge from his hiding place to hunt for food. He was a skilled hunter, and he could catch prey with ease. He would then return to his lair, where he would consume his meal in solitude. Golemkin was a feared creature, and all who knew of him avoided him at all costs. He was a symbol of darkness and evil, and his presence in the whispering woods was a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked within. Yet it wasn't their disdain that burdened Golemkin's heart. It was his unhealthy obsession with a human child. His heart ached with a longing that surpassed the boundaries of reason. On the edge of the whispering woods nestled the quaint village of Eldergrove, a hidden gem untouched by the outside world. There, the air was perfumed with a sweet aroma of freshly baked bread and blooming wildflowers, creating a tapestry of enchanting fragrances. Every morning, the villagers would gather at the bustling market square, their laughter and joy filling the air. Amidst the vibrant chaos, Golemkin first beheld the child, a little girl named Leela. Leela was a vision of ethereal beauty. Her hair, resembling spun gold, cascaded down her shoulders in lustrous waves that danced with every step she took. Her eyes, as blue as the summer sky, sparkled with intelligence and mischief. Her smile radiated a light that even the darkest corners of Golemkin's sorrowful heart. It was a smile that promised warmth, kindness, and a glimpse of a world beyond his own. From that moment on, Golemkin's life was forever intertwined with Leela's. He would spend hours watching her from afar, studying her every move, memorizing the sound of her laughter, and the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. Each encounter with Leela left him breathless and yearning for more. In a realm where shadows danced and darkness prevailed, Golemkin, a creature of the night, found himself enmeshed in the captivating presence of Leela. Her innocence and joy radiated like a beacon, stirring within him a longing he had never before known. He yearned for the light that seemed to emanate from her very being, a light that he knew he could never possess. From afar, Golemkin observed Leela, his heart aching with unspoken desires. He longed to be close to her, to feel the warmth of her smile and the gentle touch of her tiny hand. But fate had decreed that their paths could never intertwine. He was a creature of darkness, born from the abyss, while she was a being of light, her beauty and purity untouched by the shadows that consumed his soul. Golemkin knew that his presence would only bring danger and sorrow to Leela. The darkness that clung to him like a shroud would taint her innocence, and he could not bear the thought of sullying the radiance that made her so special. Yet the desire to be near her burned within him, an unquenchable flame that consumed his thoughts and dreams. As days turned into nights, Golemkin's longing grew stronger, gnawing at his heart like a relentless hunger. He watched Leela play with carefree abandon, her laughter like a melody that haunted his darkest hours. Even in his solitude, he could feel her presence, her joy casting a faint glimmer of light into the suffocating darkness that enveloped him. Golemkin's heart ached with the knowledge that he could never possess the light that Leela possessed. He was a creature of darkness, cursed to dwell in the shadows, while she was a creature of light, destined to soar among the stars. Their worlds were forever separated, and the yearning that consumed him was a bittersweet melody that would forever echo within his soul. Leela's laughter, carried by the wind, would echo through the whispering woods, a melody that both tormented and allured Golemkin. He yearned to touch her, to feel the warmth of her skin and the softness of her hair. However, he knew his touch would taint her, corrupting her innocence with the darkness that consumed him. He was a monster, cursed to dwell in the shadows, forever yearning for that which he could never have. As the sun dipped below the horizon, its fiery rays painted the sky with vibrant hues of orange and purple, casting a warm glow upon the tranquil village below. Nestled amidst the lush green hills, the village seemed like a beacon of hope and happiness. But for Golemkin, it was a place he could only observe from a distance. Hidden in the shadows of the nearby forest, Golemkin watched Leela from afar, his heart aching with a yearning that he knew would never be fulfilled. Leela, with her radiant smile and infectious laughter, was everything he longed to be: free, carefree, and untouched by the darkness that haunted him. Golemkin's existence was a constant battle, a bittersweet symphony playing relentlessly in the depths of his tormented soul. The shadows that clung to him, remnants of a past he could never escape, made him an outcast, a creature of the night, forever trapped in the twilight zone between light and darkness. In Leela's presence, Golemkin felt a flicker of hope, an ember of desire to break free from his chains. But deep down, he knew it was a dream destined to remain unfulfilled. The weight of his past and the fear of rejection held him captive, preventing him from reaching out to her. And so, night after night, Golemkin would venture closer to the village, drawn to Leela's light like a moth to a flame. He would watch her from afar, his heart aching with a longing that grew stronger with each passing moment. And as the sun rose, casting its golden rays upon the village, Golemkin would retreat to the shadows, leaving behind the dream of a life he could never have. In the heart of a mystical forest, where ancient trees whispered secrets and creatures of myth roamed free, there lived a gentle creature named Golemkin. With his emerald green eyes and a heart brimming with wonder, Golemkin was unlike any other being in the woods. His fascination with Leela, a human child who often visited the forest, grew with each passing day. Golemkin had always been a solitary creature, content with his simple life among the trees and animals. But something about Leela intrigued him, her laughter echoing through the forest like a melody that captivated his heart. He would watch from a distance, marveling at her courage and her ability to communicate with the forest creatures that he could only understand. One day, Golemkin gathered all his courage and approached Leela. Her eyes widened with surprise as she beheld the creature standing before her, his emerald eyes reflecting the lush greenery around them. To her astonishment, Golemkin began to communicate with her, his words woven with ancient wisdom and a profound understanding of the forest's secrets. Leela was captivated by Golemkin's stories, and soon they became inseparable companions. Golemkin showed her hidden paths and introduced her to creatures of myth that she had only heard about in legends. In return, Leela shared her knowledge of the outside world, telling him about human customs and traditions. Together, Golemkin and Leela formed a bond that transcended species. They learned from each other, laughed together, and shared their hopes and dreams. Their friendship became a beacon of light in the mystical forest, a testament to the power of understanding and accepting differences. In the end, Leela had to return to her village, but she never forgot her woodland companion. She often visited the forest, and Golemkin would always greet her with open arms, their friendship unyielding despite the distance that separated them. In a realm where mystical creatures roamed freely, Leela, a young human with cascading golden curls and a laughter that could ignite 1,000 stars, captivated the heart of Golemkin, a timid forest sprite with a mischievous grin and emerald green eyes. From the moment their paths crossed in a moonlit meadow, Golemkin was ensnared by Leela's ethereal beauty and enchanting spirit. He observed her from afar, his heart pounding in his chest like a tiny drum. Leela danced through the fields with a grace that rivaled the wind's whisper through the trees. Her movements were as fluid as water, and her laughter rippled through the air like the sweetest melody. Golemkin's gaze was fixed upon her, his eyes tracing every curve of her body, every flicker of her smile. With each passing day, Golemkin's infatuation grew stronger. He studied Leela's habits, learning her favorite games and the songs she sang to the birds that soared above the treetops. He marveled at her ability to communicate with the creatures of the forest, her voice a soothing balm to their skittish hearts. However, the other forest creatures were wary of Leela's presence. They warned Golemkin to stay away from her, their voices a haunting chorus of fear and caution. "Humans are dangerous, Golemkin," they cried. "They will hunt you down and destroy your kind." But Golemkin's ears were deaf to their pleas. He was under Leela's spell, entranced by her innocence and the undeniable connection he felt with her. Determined to break free from the shackles of fear, Golemkin resolved to speak to Leela. With a trembling heart, he approached her one sunny afternoon as she sat beneath a willow tree, her fingers plucking at the strings of a small harp. As the notes floated through the air, Golemkin cleared his throat and stepped into her line of sight. As the afternoon sun lazily made its descent, the dappled sunlight filtered through the lush canopy of leaves, casting delicate and intricate shadows upon the forest floor. In a world teeming with life and magic, a young girl named Leela played near the edge of the woods, her laughter carried by the gentle breeze. Unbeknownst to her, a curious creature known as Golemkin emerged from the depths of the forest, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Golemkin had always been captivated by the humans that lived on the other side of the woods, their laughter and conversations drifting like distant melodies through the trees. He had watched them from afar, his heart yearning to interact with them, but held back by fear and self-doubt. Yet, on this fateful afternoon, a surge of hope surged through his veins. Perhaps, just perhaps, he could muster the courage to speak to Leela, the girl who seemed to have a kind and gentle spirit. With each step closer to the edge of the woods, Golemkin's body trembled with anticipation and fear. The sunlight seemed brighter, the shadows darker, and the world held its breath in anticipation. As he finally stepped into the sunlight, his breath caught in his throat, and his body froze, his eyes locked on Leela's curious gaze. Time seemed to slow down as Leela's eyes widened with surprise and a hint of wonder. Leela's heart pounded against her ribcage as she whirled around, her eyes widening in a maelstrom of astonishment and terror. Her lips parted, a whisper escaping in a trembling voice. "Who are you?" Every fiber of her being screamed at her to flee, but her feet remained rooted to the spot, transfixed by the strange creature before her. Golemkin, a small, wiry goblin with an oversized head and bulging eyes, felt a cold dread wash over him at the sight of Leela's reaction. It was his heart's desire to share his cherished collection of shiny stones and trinkets, meticulously gathered over countless years. But desperation, a foul beast that gnawed at his insides, propelled him forward. His trembling hands reached out, longing to grasp hers. As his gnarled fingers brushed against Leela's soft skin, a jolt of electricity shot through them both. Leela gasped, recoiling in fear. Golemkin's eyes widened in a mix of hurt and desperation. He stumbled backward, his heart sinking like a stone in a deep, dark lake. The realization of his actions dawned on him, and a wave of shame washed over him. He had misjudged the situation, blinded by his desire to be accepted. A guttural sob escaped his lips as he turned and fled into the depths of the forest, leaving Leela standing there, her heart still racing, her mind grappling with the encounter she had just experienced. In that fateful instant, an unfortunate accident unfolded like a dark tapestry, forever altering the course of their lives. Leela, a woman of remarkable grace and beauty, stumbled upon uneven ground, her feet becoming entangled in the unforgiving terrain. She fell with a sickening thud, the sound echoing through the desolate landscape. Beside her, Golemkin, his heart pounding with a mixture of love and terror, lunged forward in a frantic attempt to catch her. But fate had a cruel twist in store. As he reached out, his hand, trembling with desperation, accidentally struck her head against a sharp, jagged rock. Time seemed to come to standstill as Golemkin knelt beside her, a wave of horror washing over him like a tsunami. Leela lay motionless on the ground, her golden hair fanned out around her head like a halo, catching the last rays of the setting sun. It seemed as though the light itself mourned her untimely demise. Golemkin's heart shattered into a million pieces, a symphony of pain reverberating through his being. He reached out to touch her cheek, his fingers trembling, only to find it cold and lifeless. Panic gnawed at his insides as he realized the gravity of what had just transpired. Leela, his beloved, the light of his life, was gone. The woman who had brought joy and warmth into his cold, lonely existence was now nothing more than a shell, her vibrant spirit extinguished. Tears welled up in Golemkin's eyes, blurring his vision. He couldn't believe that such a cruel fate had befallen them. He cradled her head in his hands, his body racked with sobs. The world around him seemed to fade away as he became lost in his grief. In the aftermath of his tragic mistake, Golemkin's heart was heavy with guilt and remorse. As the weight of his actions pressed down upon him, tears welled up in his eyes, threatening to overflow. With trembling hands, he reached out towards her, his touch hesitant and uncertain, as if he feared causing further pain. A soft whisper escaped his lips, her name a plea for forgiveness, but it was met with silence. Golemkin's sobs echoed through the desolate landscape, his anguish palpable and unbearable. He had never intended to hurt her, yet fate had conspired against him, leaving him responsible for such a devastating outcome. As the sun began its descent, casting long, haunting shadows across the land, Golemkin made a solemn vow. He would carry the burden of this accident for the rest of his days, a constant reminder of the innocent life he had taken. He would never forget, and in her memory, he would strive to live a life filled with kindness and compassion. From that day forward, Golemkin dedicated himself to helping others, offering his assistance to anyone in need. He became a tireless advocate for the vulnerable, always striving to make amends for his past actions. Word of Golemkin's transformation spread far and wide, reaching the ears of those who had once known him as a troubled soul. They were astonished by his unwavering commitment to redemption, his every act a testament to his genuine desire to atone for his mistakes. Golemkin's journey was not without challenges. There were moments when the weight of his guilt threatened to overwhelm him, but he persevered, finding solace in the knowledge that he could honor her memory by living a life worthy of her. As the years passed, Golemkin became a beacon of hope for those who had lost their way. His story served as a reminder that even the darkest of past could be transformed through genuine remorse and a commitment to change. And so, Golemkin continued his tireless work, his actions a testament to the power of forgiveness and the human capacity for redemption. In the quaint village of Eldergrove, where the whispers of the wind carried secrets through the leaves, a tragedy unfolded that tore at the very heart of its people. Leela, a beloved child, was snatched from their midst, her life extinguished by a monstrous act that left the villagers reeling in disbelief and sorrow. The news spread like wildfire, igniting a storm of emotions within the villagers. They were consumed by grief, their hearts heavy with the weight of their loss. But alongside their grief, anger surged like a raging river, a fury that sought vengeance for the innocent life taken. Eldergrove had always been a peaceful haven, a place where neighbors knew each other's names and children played together in the cobblestone streets. But the evil that had befallen Leela shattered that illusion, leaving the villagers with a sense of vulnerability they had never known before. As the days turned into weeks, the villagers struggled to come to terms with their loss. They gathered in the village square, their faces etched with pain as they shared stories about Leela's infectious laughter and her love for exploring the nearby forest. They wept together, their tears mingling with the rain that seemed to fall endlessly. In their search for justice, the villagers turned to the local authorities, but the investigation yielded no leads. Frustration mounted, and whispers of taking matters into their own hands began to circulate. One night, a group of villagers gathered in secret, their faces grim with determination. They vowed to find Leela's killer, no matter the cost. They formed a vigilante group, patrolling the streets and questioning anyone who might have information. As the weeks turned into months, the villagers' resolve remained unwavering. They scoured the forest, searching for any clues that might lead them to the perpetrator. But despite their efforts, the case remained unsolved. Leela's memory lived on in the hearts of the villagers. They spoke her name in hushed tones, their voices trembling with emotion. They vowed never to forget her, and to ensure that justice would one day prevail. in a small, desolate village, nestled amidst the towering peaks of Mount Shadow, a heart-wrenching tragedy had struck. The air was thick with sorrow and anger as the villagers gathered, their faces contorted with grief and fury. Torches flickered ominously in their hands, casting an eerie glow upon their weathered faces as they brandished pitchforks and crudely fashioned weapons. The villagers' cries of anguish echoed through the valley, reverberating with the weight of their loss. They had lost their beloved child to a monstrous creature, their hearts shattered by the unimaginable pain. Word of their intentions spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of Golemkin, a gentle creature who dwelled in the whispering woods. His heart, as soft and delicate as the moss that adorned the trees of his home, was filled with fear and trepidation. He knew that he was in grave danger, for his only crime had been his desire to be close to Leela, the child they mourned. Golemkin had always been an outsider, misunderstood and shunned by the villagers. His appearance was unusual, his skin shimmering with an ethereal glow, and his eyes sparkled with an intelligence that set him apart from the others. But beneath his peculiar exterior lay a heart filled with compassion and empathy. He had longed to understand Leela, to offer her companionship in her solitary existence. He had never intended to harm her, but his actions had been misinterpreted, leading to this tragic outcome. As the angry mob descended upon the whispering woods, Golemkin knew he had no choice but to flee. He darted through the trees, his bare feet silent upon the soft earth. His pursuers, fueled by their grief and anger, closed in on him, their shouts of vengeance echoing through the forest. With trembling limbs and a heart pounding furiously in his chest, Golemkin fled deeper into the woods, seeking refuge from the angry villagers who pursued him. The shouts of the villagers echoed through the trees, each word a sharp dagger piercing his ears. Their footsteps pounded against the earth like a relentless drumbeat, urging him to run faster, to escape their wrath. Golemkin's breath came in ragged gasps as he stumbled over roots and rocks, his bare feet aching from the sharp stones and thorns that littered the forest floor. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the chaos that had unfolded. He had only wanted to borrow a few coins from the village store, but the shopkeeper had raised the alarm, and now the entire village was after him. "Run," he whispered to himself, the word reverberating in his mind like a mantra. He knew he couldn't stop, not until he found a place to hide. He pressed on, his legs burning with exhaustion, his lungs screaming for air. The forest seemed to grow darker and more ominous with each step he took. The trees loomed over him like menacing giants, their branches reaching out like grasping claws. Shadows danced and flickered, and Golemkin imagined that every shadow concealed a villager, ready to pounce on him. Fear gnawed at his insides, but he refused to give up. He knew that if he stopped, the villagers would catch him, and he would face their punishment. He had heard stories of what happened to thieves in the village. They were whipped, imprisoned, or even worse. With renewed determination, Golemkin pushed himself forward, his eyes scanning the forest for a hiding place. He spotted a large hollow log, half buried in the undergrowth, and he crawled inside, curling up into a tight ball. He held his breath, listening intently for any sound of pursuit. The minutes ticked by, and Golemkin slowly began to relax. The sound of the villagers' shouts faded into the distance, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. He closed his eyes, exhausted but relieved. He had escaped, for now. But as he lay there, his mind couldn't help but wonder what the future held for him. He knew that he couldn't stay in the forest forever. Eventually, he would have to return to the village and face the consequences of his actions. But for now, he was safe, and that was all that mattered. In the heart of a picturesque village, nestled amidst rolling green hills, a somber atmosphere enveloped the inhabitants like a shroud of sorrow. The weight of grief hung heavy, borne by a young man named Eric. From the moment Leela entered the world, her presence intertwined with his, weaving an intricate tapestry of shared experiences and profound emotions. Her untimely demise left an immeasurable void in his soul, a gaping wound that threatened to consume him. Eric stood alongside his fellow villagers, his heart ablaze with anger and a steely resolve. The creature responsible for Leela's death could not escape justice. As he addressed the hushed crowd, his voice resonated with a mix of anguish and determination. "We must find this creature and make it pay for its heinous act." His words sparked a fire within the villagers, igniting a collective desire for retribution. The memory of Leela's laughter, her radiant smile, and her unwavering kindness fueled their resolve. Eric, driven by his unwavering love for Leela and the burning need to avenge her death, became a beacon of hope for his people. He rallied the villagers, organizing search parties and devising strategies to track down the elusive creature. Their search led them through dense forests, treacherous mountain passes, and desolate wastelands. Each step they took brought them closer to their goal, fueled by the unwavering belief that justice would prevail. Eric's anger burned like a furnace, propelling him forward. He refused to be consumed by darkness, choosing instead to channel his emotions into a relentless pursuit of vengeance. The villagers stood united behind him, offering their unwavering support and companionship. Their journey was fraught with danger and hardship, but Eric's unwavering determination pushed them on. He became a symbol of resilience, inspiring his fellow villagers to overcome their grief and fear. The desire for justice burned brightly within them, the path ahead and guiding them toward their ultimate goal. In the midst of the sorrowful gathering, Elara, a woman renowned for her empathy and understanding, emerged from the shadows. Her heart was burdened by the overwhelming grief of the villagers and the plight of the misunderstood creature that haunted the nearby woods. "Hold," she implored, her voice resonating with compassion. "We cannot act solely out of vengeance. Consider the possibility that this was an unfortunate accident. What if the creature had no malicious intent in harming dear Leela?" Eric, consumed by grief, was oblivious to any alternative explanation. He shook his head vehemently, his eyes clouded with sorrow and anger. "It matters not," he retorted, his voice trembling with intense emotion. "It took Leela's life, and we must avenge her." Elara was determined to provide a voice of reason amidst the overpowering tide of grief and anger. She stepped closer to Eric, her eyes filled with empathy and understanding. "Eric, vengeance will not bring Leela back," she said softly. "And if we act rashly, we may end up harming an innocent creature." Eric's features softened slightly, his grief-stricken gaze meeting Elara's compassionate one. He had known her for many years, and he trusted her judgment. "But what if it happens again?" he asked, his voice heavy with concern. "Can we risk another life being taken?" Elara considered his question thoughtfully. "We cannot eliminate all risks, Eric," she replied, "but we can try to understand the creature's behavior and find a way to coexist peacefully. Perhaps there's a reason for its actions that we don't know about." The villagers stood silently, absorbing Elara's words. Some were swayed by her reasoning, while others remained skeptical. Eric, torn between his desire for vengeance and his trust in Elara, took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "Very well," he said, "but if the creature harms anyone else, we will have no choice but to act." Elara smiled gently. "Thank you, Eric," she said. "I believe we have taken the first step towards finding a peaceful resolution." In the wake of Eric's outburst, Elara's plea reverberated through the village square, met only with silence. The villagers, burdened by the weight of a decision that could alter their lives forever, were caught between their innate desire for justice and the nagging doubt instilled by Elara's words. Elara's voice, trembling yet laced with conviction, had echoed through the cobblestone streets. She had spoken of Eric's past, of his volatile temper and unpredictable actions. She had implored the villagers to consider the possibility that the incident involving the stolen goods might have been a misunderstanding, a product of miscommunication or manipulation. Eric, consumed by rage, was blind to reason. His anger had clouded his judgment, distorting his perception of events. The villagers knew him well, and they recognized the signs of his inner turmoil. Yet, they also yearned for justice, for the truth to be revealed. The silence that hung heavy in the air was broken only by the distant sound of the wind rustling through the leaves of the ancient oak tree that stood at the center of the square. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, contemplating their options. Some believed that Eric's outburst was a symptom of his guilt. while others wondered if Elara's plea held any merit. The decision that lay before them was not easy. The villagers were torn between their desire to uphold justice and their lingering doubt. They knew that their verdict would have profound consequences, not only for Eric, but also for the harmony of their close-knit community. As the villagers set out into the woods, a collective sense of dread washed over Elara's slender frame. Her heart throbbed with fear, and her mind raced with foreboding thoughts of what lay ahead. She knew all too well that if they found Golemkin, they would not show him mercy. Whispers of his existence had permeated the woods, tales of a creature who was once revered as a guardian, a protector of the forest, now hunted and feared. It was said that Golemkin possessed ancient knowledge and wisdom, but his strange appearance and reclusive nature had turned the villagers against him. Determined to save him, Elara slipped away from the group, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and resolve. She ventured deeper into the woods, her footsteps silent as she navigated the undergrowth. With each step, her resolve grew stronger, her fear transforming into unwavering determination. She knew she had to find Golemkin before the villagers did, or his fate would be sealed. The forest seemed to hold its breath as Elara called out softly, "Golemkin, Golemkin!" Her voice echoed through the trees, carrying a plea and a promise. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the woods, an ethereal glow began to the path ahead. Guided by this strange light, Elara's hope grew, and she called out again, her voice tinged with urgency. Suddenly, a rustling in the bushes caught her attention. Elara froze, her senses heightened. Then, from the shadows, a pair of emerald-green eyes emerged, peering at her cautiously. It was Golemkin, his wizened face etched with both fear and longing. Without hesitation, Elara approached him, her outstretched hand trembling slightly. "Don't be afraid, Golemkin," she said softly. "I won't let them hurt you." A flicker of recognition crossed Golemkin's eyes, and he took a tentative step towards her. In that moment, Elara knew she had found a kindred spirit, an outcast who had been misunderstood and feared. After what seemed like an eternity, she found him hiding beneath a thicket, his eyes wide with terror and his small frame trembling with fear. "Go away," he hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. "They will kill me." Elara knelt beside him, her heart aching for the creature who had only ever wanted to connect with a child. His plea for mercy tugged at her heartstrings, and she knew she could not abandon him. "I'm not here to hurt you. I want to help you. Please, let me help you hide." Golemkin's eyes searched her face, a flicker of hope igniting in their depths. "You won't hurt me?" he asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. "I promise," Elara replied, her gaze steady and sincere. "I will do everything in my power to protect you." After what seemed like an eternity of searching, Elara finally found Golemkin hiding beneath a thicket. His small, creature-like body was trembling with fear, and his wide, startled eyes reflected the terror that consumed him. As she approached, he hissed at her, his voice little more than a desperate whisper. "Go away, they will kill me." Elara's heart ached for the creature, a being who had only ever desired a connection with a child. His plea for mercy tugged at her heartstrings, and she knew she could not abandon him. Kneeling beside him, she spoke softly, "I'm not here to hurt you, Golemkin. I want to help you. Please, let me help you hide." Golemkin's eyes searched her face, a flicker of hope igniting in their depths. "You won't hurt me?" he asked, his voice laced with uncertainty and fear. "I promise," Elara replied, her gaze steady and sincere. "I will do everything in my power to protect you." Relief washed over Golemkin, and he nodded slowly, his small body relaxing slightly. Elara carefully examined his wounds, which were shallow but numerous, and she cleaned them as gently as she could. As she worked, she learned more about Golemkin's plight. He had been hunted by a group of ruthless creatures, and he had only narrowly escaped with his life. Once she had finished tending to his wounds, Elara led Golemkin deeper into the forest, where they found a secluded cave. She gathered soft moss and leaves to create a comfortable bed for him, and she left him with some food and water. As she was about to leave, Golemkin reached out and took her hand. "Thank you," he whispered, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You're the only one who's ever been kind to me." Elara smiled gently. "You're welcome, Golemkin. I'm just glad I could help." With that, she left Golemkin in the cave, promising to return soon. As she made her way back to her home, Elara knew that her life had been forever changed. She had found a new purpose in protecting Golemkin, and she was determined to do everything in her power to keep him safe. With newfound trust blossoming between them, Golemkin allowed Elara to lead him deeper into the mystical woods. Their footsteps echoed softly upon the mossy ground, leaving behind no discernible trail. The forest, with its towering ancient trees and dense undergrowth, seemed to envelop them in a protective embrace. As they ventured further, the sunlight gradually gave way to dappled shadows, casting an air of secrecy upon their journey. Elara's knowledge of the forest and her cunning mind had allowed her to devise a cunning plan. She knew that the villagers would not easily abandon their search for Golemkins, so she created a series of false trails and planted misleading clues to lead them astray. Firstly, she chose a hidden cave nestled within a secluded glade, where Golemkin could take refuge. The cave's entrance was concealed by a thick curtain of ivy, making it almost impossible to discover by chance. Next, Elara crafted false trails leading away from the cave, using broken twigs, footprints, and torn leaves to create the illusion that Golemkin had headed in a different direction. She also planted misleading clues, such as a piece of Golemkin's clothing left behind on a prominent rock, to further confuse the villagers and divert their attention. Elara's plan was executed with meticulous precision, leaving no stone unturned in her efforts to deceive the villagers. She knew that every false trail and misleading clue would add to the complexity of their search, buying Golemkin precious time to hide and recover. With her cunning plan in place, Elara guided Golemkin into the hidden cave, where he could rest and gather his strength. As they entered the cave, a sense of relief washed over Golemkin, knowing that, for now, he was safe from the clutches of the villagers. And so, under the protective embrace of the hidden cave, Golemkin and Elara waited, their fate intertwined by trust, cunning, and the secrets of the forest. In the heart of the ancient woods, where sunlight struggled to penetrate and the air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, Golemkin followed Elara's lead into a hidden cave. As they settled in, the dim light revealed the creature's quivering form, his heart pounding as if it would burst from his chest. Elara's soothing voice filled the air, her gentle words attempting to calm his racing mind. "You didn't intend to hurt her, did you?" she asked softly. Golemkin shook his head. Tears glistened in his large, mournful eyes. "No," he cried, his voice trembling. "I loved her. I only wanted to be close, to feel her warmth and hear her laughter. But something inside me snapped, and darkness consumed me." Elara felt a pang of empathy for the creature. She understood that his obsession had stemmed from a deep-seated loneliness, a desire for connection that had gone tragically wrong. "I know, Golemkin," she said. "You were driven by a longing that overwhelmed you. But we must stay hidden until the villagers calm down and forget about you." Golemkin nodded, his shoulders sagging with defeat. "I will do whatever it takes," he said. Elara smiled, a flicker of hope lighting up her eyes. "I promise, Golemkin, I will help you," she said. "We will find a way to heal your heart and find a place where you belong." And so, the unlikely pair began their journey, venturing deeper into the woods, seeking solace and a glimmer of redemption. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting long and eerie shadows across the dense woods, the villagers continued their relentless search. Their hearts were burning with anger, a wildfire fueled by the heart-wrenching loss that united them in their quest for justice. Eric, his face etched with grief and determination, led the charge. Once known for his kind and gentle nature, his eyes now held a steely resolve, hardened by the unimaginable pain of losing his beloved. "We will find it," he roared, his voice echoing through the trees like a thunderclap. "We will not rest until justice is served." The villagers followed close behind, their footsteps pounding against the unforgiving earth. They scoured every nook and cranny, their determination unwavering. But as the hours turned into days, whispers of doubt began to cast their insidious shadows. The relentless search took a toll on their bodies and minds, and some began to question the futility of their efforts. Eric, however, refused to yield to despair. He remembered the promise he had made to his beloved, and knew that he could not rest until he fulfilled it. With each passing day, his resolve grew stronger, and he inspired the weary villagers to keep going. As the search continued, the villagers discovered clues that pointed to a dark and sinister force at work. They uncovered hidden symbols and strange markings that hinted at a malevolent presence lurking in the shadows. Fear gnawed at their hearts, but they pressed on, their courage fueled by their unwavering desire for justice. In a twist of fate, the villagers stumbled upon an ancient artifact that held the key to their quest. It was a mystical compass that revealed the location of a hidden chamber deep within the heart of the woods. With renewed hope, they raced towards their destination, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Finally, they reached the chamber, a dark and foreboding place filled with an oppressive aura. There, they confronted the malevolent force that had taken their loved ones. A fierce battle ensued, with the villagers fighting valiantly for justice. In the end, they emerged victorious, their hearts filled with a bittersweet mix of sorrow and triumph. As they returned to their village, the villagers were greeted as heroes. They had not only avenged their losses, but had also saved their community from a terrible fate. The memory of their loved ones would forever be cherished, and their sacrifice would never be forgotten. In the wake of the tragic incident that had befallen their tranquil village, an undercurrent of uncertainty and unease permeated the air. As the villagers grappled with the aftermath, their emotions ran deep and raw. Among them, a woman's voice, trembling with a mix of sorrow and bewilderment, broke the silence. "What if it was just an accident?" she murmured, her words laced with doubt and confusion. "What if it didn't mean to hurt her?" Her question hung heavy in the air, causing a ripple of introspection among the gathered villagers. The accident in question involved a creature of immense power that had inadvertently caused harm to an innocent villager. Eric, a young man whose heart was consumed by grief, responded with a torrent of rage. His voice, like the grinding of gravel, thundered through the gathering. "It doesn't matter," he bellowed, his eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and anguish. "It must pay for what it has done." His words reverberated through the silent crowd, igniting a fierce determination within them. They knew that justice had to be served, no matter the cost. The villagers, who had always lived in harmony with nature, now faced a dilemma that challenged their values and beliefs. As night fell, the villagers gathered around the council fire, their faces dimmed by the flickering flames. They listened intently as their elders recounted tales of past encounters with similar creatures, warning of their unpredictable nature and the dangers they posed. The discussion grew heated, with some villagers advocating for mercy and understanding, while others demanded swift retribution. The debate raged on, each person's voice carrying the weight of their own experiences and emotions. In the end, the council decided that justice must be served, but they would not resort to blind vengeance. They would approach the creature with caution, seeking to understand its intentions and find a resolution that honored both justice and compassion. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness, the villagers set out on their journey, their hearts heavy with the burden of their decision. The fate of their village and the future of their relationship with the enigmatic creature lay in the balance. As the moon rose high in the sky, its silver light casting an eerie glow upon the forest, the search continued unabated. The villagers, their faces etched with anger and sorrow, pressed onward, driven by a relentless determination to bring the creature responsible for their beloved's death to account. The echoes of their footsteps reverberated through the hushed woodland, mingling with the mournful howls of distant wolves. Each step they took seemed to reinvigorate their resolve, a burning mixture of grief and fury propelling them forward. The memory of their loved one's stolen life weighed heavily upon their hearts, an invisible burden that spurred them on. Their community had been shattered, their lives torn apart, and they would not rest until the creature that had unleashed such devastation was brought to justice. The forest, once a source of comfort and familiarity, now seemed transformed into a treacherous labyrinth. Shadows danced and flickered among the trees, and strange noises echoed through the dense undergrowth. But the villagers were undeterred, their unwavering focus driving them onward. They were united in their purpose, a common bond that transcended individual differences. As the hours wore on, the moon's light intensified the hidden crevices of the forest. The villagers pressed on, their eyes scanning the ground for any sign of the creature's presence. They had vowed to leave no stone unturned until their mission was accomplished, and the community they held dear could finally begin to heal. The search continued, a testament to the resilience and unwavering determination of the human spirit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the villagers pressed onward, their resolve as unyielding as the ancient trees that surrounded them. Within the hidden depths of the cave, an unlikely connection blossomed between Golemkin, the shadowy creature, and Elara, the radiant villager. As the shadows danced upon the cavern walls, Elara wove enchanting tales of her village, painting vivid pictures of Leela's laughter and the infectious joy she brought to everyone. With each story, Golemkin's heart, usually filled with guilt and sorrow, felt a strange sense of belonging that he had never known before. "I never had a friend before," Golemkin confessed one starlit night, his voice barely audible above the whisper of the wind. "I only ever yearned to be loved." His words echoed through the cave, carrying the weight of a lifetime of loneliness. Touched by his vulnerability, Elara rested a gentle hand on his shoulder. Her touch was warm and comforting, a beacon of hope in the darkness. "You are not a monster, Golemkin," she reassured him, her eyes filled with compassion. "You made a mistake, but that does not define you. We all make mistakes." Golemkin's eyes widened in disbelief, his heart fluttering with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The words, "You are not a monster," resonated within him, shattering the chains of self-loathing that had bound him for so long. Tears welled in his eyes, tears of sorrow and relief, as he realized that he was not as irredeemable as he had believed. As the night wore on, Golemkin and Elara continued to talk, sharing their stories and dreams. Golemkin spoke of his childhood, of the loneliness that had consumed him, and of his desperate desire to be accepted. Elara listened intently, her heart aching for the pain he had endured. She shared her own stories, of the challenges she had faced, and of the importance of forgiveness and redemption. Through their conversations, Golemkin and Elara formed a bond that transcended their differences. They discovered that beneath the surface, they were both creatures longing for love and understanding. In the depths of the cave, they found solace and acceptance in each other's presence, proving that even in the darkest of places, unexpected friendships can bloom, the path toward healing and redemption. As days melted into nights, the tranquil village was engulfed in a shroud of unrest. The relentless search for the elusive Golemkin proved futile, fueling a simmering frustration among the villagers. Eric, driven by an insatiable desire for vengeance, found himself turning against anyone who dared question his motives. His voice echoed through the streets. "We cannot allow this monstrous creature to escape. Its bloodlust will only lead to more innocent lives taken." His words ignited a renewed fervor in the villagers, galvanizing them to continue their relentless hunt. In the midst of this turmoil, Elara, her heart heavy with compassion, devised a plan to protect Golemkin. She resolved to confront the villagers, armed with the truth and a plea for mercy and understanding. Gathering her courage, she stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering. "My friends, we must not succumb to fear and anger," she began. "Golemkin is not a heartless monster, but a creature driven by instinct and desperate for survival." Drawing upon her wisdom and experience, Elara recounted the events that had transpired, shedding light on the misunderstandings and misinterpretations that had fueled the villagers' hatred. She spoke of the ancient bond between humans and the creatures of the forest, reminding them of the interdependence and respect that had once defined their relationship. As Elara's words washed over the villagers, a flicker of doubt began to spark in their eyes. The seeds of compassion, long buried beneath layers of fear and prejudice, were slowly germinating. One by one, they began to question the righteousness of their actions, realizing that their pursuit of vengeance had blinded them to the truth. Eric, consumed by his thirst for blood, initially resisted Elara's plea. However, as the villager's resolve wavered, he found himself isolated and alone. The realization that his desire for vengeance had alienated him from his community gnawed at his conscience. In the end, Elara's unwavering determination and heartfelt words prevailed. The villagers, their hearts touched by her compassion, agreed to spare Golemkin's life. Eric, humbled and ashamed, sought forgiveness for his actions, promising to be guided by wisdom and compassion in the future. As the sun rose on a new day, the villagers emerged from their homes with a newfound sense of understanding. They vowed to rebuild their relationship with the creatures of the forest, recognizing that coexistence and respect were the only paths to lasting peace. Nestled in the heart of the quaint village, a colossal elm tree towered like a majestic sentinel. Its sprawling branches cast an ethereal shade that enveloped the hushed gathering. Amidst the cluster of villagers stood Elara, her hands trembling like autumn leaves in a gusty wind and her heart thundering like a war drum. As her gaze swept across the sea of faces, she could discern the etched lines of sorrow, anger, and suspicion. The weight of her words hung heavy upon her shoulders, for she knew that what she was about to say would determine the fate of a young man, Golemkin, who stood accused of a heinous crime. She drew a deep breath and spoke with a voice that was both clear and defiant. "I implore you to listen, dear villagers. Golemkin did not murder Leela out of malice. It was a terrible accident. He is not a monster." Her words hung in the air like wisps of smoke, stirring a fresh gust of anger. From the crowd, Eric, Leela's father, stepped forward, his eyes ablaze with a fury that could set the world aflame. Amidst the gloom of their abode, Eric's deep-throated growl echoed, a menacing undercurrent coursing through his words. "You would defend that creature?" The accusation hung heavy in the air, each syllable reverberating with the pain of a parent who had lost their cherished child. Elara met Eric's gaze head-on, her resolve unwavering. Her eyes mirrored the agony he carried, the raw wound of a parent robbed of their beloved child. Yet she knew that vengeance would not restore the life of their beloved Leela or mend the shattered hearts of their family. "It was a tragic mistake," Elara spoke, her voice steady, her tone belying the turmoil within her. "Born from a place of loneliness and fear, we cannot let our grief consume us, transforming us into the very monsters we seek to condemn." Eric's rage simmered beneath the surface, his nostrils flaring as he struggled to contain his emotions. "But it killed our child, our innocent Leela." Elara's heart ached at Eric's anguish. She knew that her words alone could not heal the gaping wound that gnawed at his soul. But she had to try, for the sake of their family, and for the memory of their lost daughter. "Leela would not want us to be consumed by hatred," she said softly. "She would want us to find a way to move forward, to honor her memory by living our lives with love and compassion." Eric's gaze softened slightly, a glimmer of understanding flickering in his eyes. He knew Elara was right, but the pain was still fresh, the wound still raw. He reached out and took Elara's hand, their fingers entwining in a silent promise. Together, they would find a way to navigate the darkness that had enveloped them. They would seek justice for Leela, but they would not let grief turn them into monsters. They would honor their daughter's memory by living their lives with love, compassion, and unwavering determination. In a small village shrouded in mist and shrouded in prejudice, a young woman's words reverberated through the crowd. Her voice, clear and unwavering, cut through the fog of anger that had consumed them. She spoke of Golemkin, a gentle and peculiar boy who stood accused of a heinous act. Some villagers stirred uneasily, their hearts wrestling with doubt. They had always known Golemkin as a kind soul, always ready to lend a hand or share a smile. The thought that he could be capable of such a heinous crime gnawed at their conscience. Yet others remained steadfast in their desire for revenge. They had lost a precious light, a beloved member of their community, and they craved retribution. Their hearts burned with a fierce need for justice, and they demanded blood in return. The crowd buzzed with conflicting murmurs, a symphony of confusion and indecision. Some pleaded for mercy, urging forgiveness and understanding. They argued that Golemkin's gentle nature belied his guilt, Others, consumed by grief and anger, clamored for punishment, demanding that he pay for his supposed crime with his life. The young woman's voice rose above the din, her words a beacon of reason and compassion. She reminded them of the importance of due process, of the need for evidence and fairness. She implored them to consider the possibility of a false accusation, of the danger of condemning an innocent soul. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, the crowd's fervor gradually subsided. Doubt crept into their minds, and the desire for vengeance began to wane. They realized that their anger had clouded their judgment, and they were willing to listen to reason. In the end, Golemkin's fate rested in the hands of a fair trial. Evidence was presented, witnesses were examined, and the truth slowly emerged. The accusations against Golemkin proved to be false, fabricated by a jealous rival seeking revenge. The villagers, relieved and ashamed of their hasty judgment, embraced Golemkin once more, welcoming him back into their community with open arms. In the aftermath, the fog of anger and prejudice dissipated, leaving behind a village united in reconciliation and understanding. They had learned a valuable lesson that day, a lesson about the importance of due process, the power of compassion, and the danger of allowing emotions to cloud their judgment. In the dimming twilight, where shadows danced upon the horizon, tensions were mounting like a storm gathering strength. It was within this atmosphere of uncertainty and fear that a figure emerged from the enveloping darkness: Golemkin, a creature whose existence was haunted by fear and tormented by fleeting glimmers of hope. The concept of kindness had always been a distant dream for him, a whispered melody carried away by the relentless wind. The mere thought of facing the villagers filled him with a profound terror that gnawed at his core, a visceral fear that consumed his being. Yet, amidst the all-encompassing gloom, the echoes of Elara's words reverberated within Golemkin's heart. Her gentle voice, tinged with compassion and understanding, had ignited a faint spark of courage within him, a spark that flickered like a dying ember in the depths of his soul. It was this spark that gave him the strength to step out of the shadows and confront the villagers. With trembling limbs and a heart that pounded against his ribs like a war drum, Golemkin took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of resolve within him. Slowly, he stepped into the light, his eyes wide with both fear and determination. His voice, trembling and laced with emotion, pierced the air. "I didn't mean to hurt her," he exclaimed, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I loved her, I just wanted to be close." The raw honesty of his words hung in the air, palpable and undeniable. In a small, remote village, nestled amidst rolling hills and ancient forests, a collective gasp swept through the gathered villagers. Their eyes, wide with astonishment, turned towards a figure that had once been consumed by anger and grief. Eric, his countenance etched with the lines of pain, experienced a profound shift in his expression. The rage that had consumed him for countless nights faded away, replaced by a glimmer of hope. For a fleeting moment, silence reigned supreme, enveloping the scene in an eerie stillness. Golemkin, the creature who had once been feared and despised, stood vulnerable and exposed. His words, heavy with emotion, hung in the air, echoing through the hushed crowd. The villagers, who had once seen him as nothing more than a monster, now found themselves confronted with a creature capable of love and longing. As Golemkin's gaze met Eric's, time seemed to stand still. Eric's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the truth. The anger that had burned like a wildfire in his veins had begun to cool, replaced by a glimmer of understanding. Slowly, Eric took a step forward, his eyes locked on Golemkin. He reached out a hand, and Golemkin, with trembling fingers, took it. In that shared moment, a bridge was built between two worlds, a connection forged through pain and the possibility of redemption. The villagers watched in awe as their former enemy became a symbol of hope. They realized that the monsters they had feared were not always as they seemed, and that even the darkest of hearts could be touched by love. From that day forward, Golemkin was no longer an outcast. He became a member of the community, welcomed and accepted by those who had once feared him. And as the years passed, the story of Eric and Golemkin became a legend, a testament to the power of compassion and the possibility of redemption. In that pivotal moment, Amidst the clamor of angry voices, Golemkin stood exposed before the irate villagers. His wide, fear-stricken eyes mirrored the depth of his regret. The creature's frail form trembled, and tears streamed down his face, etching rivers of sorrow upon his weathered skin. "I am sorry," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the din. "I never intended for this to happen. I only yearned for love, for acceptance." The villagers, their faces twisted with rage and grief, surrounded Golemkin, their weapons raised in accusation. They had lost loved ones to the creature's misguided actions, and their hearts were filled with a desire for vengeance. But among the angry villagers, Elara, a wise and compassionate woman, stepped forward. She understood the pain that had driven Golemkin to commit his terrible deeds, and she could see that he was truly remorseful. "He deserves the opportunity to explain himself," she urged, her voice clear and resolute. "In our anguish, we cannot allow our pain to blind us to the truth." The villagers, momentarily stunned by Elara's words, slowly began to lower their weapons. Uncertainty and doubt flickered across their faces, casting shadows of contemplation upon their hardened features. Eric, torn between his grief over his lost loved ones and the undeniable sorrow emanating from Golemkin, felt his resolve waver. His heart, burdened with both pain and compassion, hesitated, unsure of the path forward. Elara turned to Golemkin, her eyes filled with understanding. "Speak," she said. "Tell us why you did what you did." Golemkin took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice trembling. He told the villagers about his lonely childhood, his longing for love and acceptance, and the desperate act that had led to the tragedy. As he spoke, the villagers listened, their anger slowly fading into empathy. When Golemkin had finished, there was a moment of silence. The villagers looked at one another, their faces troubled, but no longer filled with anger. "I still don't understand why you did it," said Eric, his voice heavy with emotion. "But I can see that you are truly sorry." "I am," said Golemkin. "I know that I can never make up for what I have done, but I promise that I will spend the rest of my life trying to atone for my sins." The villagers nodded slowly, their hearts torn between their desire for justice and their understanding of Golemkin's pain. In the end, they decided to spare Golemkin's life, but they banished him from their village, forbidding him from ever returning. Golemkin accepted his punishment without complaint. He knew that he could never live among the villagers again, but he was grateful for the chance to make amends for his past actions. He wandered the land, helping those in need, and eventually found peace and redemption. As the days turned into weeks, Golemkin began to forge a new life, slowly emerging from the shadows of his past. With Elara's unwavering guidance, he learned to navigate the delicate balance between the wild woods and the bustling village. He found a newfound purpose, becoming a silent guardian of the children as they played near the forest edge, his once sinister presence transforming into a comforting reassurance. Golemkin's actions spoke louder than words, demonstrating his genuine remorse and desire to protect those who had once feared him. Meanwhile, Eric, the once skeptical villager, began to undergo a transformation of his own. From a distance, he observed Golemkin's interactions with the children, his heart slowly softening as he witnessed the creature's genuine remorse and desire to protect. Eric's preconceived notions began to crumble, replaced by a growing sense of empathy. He realized that Golemkin was not the monster he had once believed him to be, but a creature capable of great compassion and understanding. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between Elara and Golemkin grew stronger, a testament to the power of compassion and understanding. Elara's unwavering belief in Golemkin, coupled with his willingness to change, created a ripple effect that spread throughout the village. Villagers who had once shunned Golemkin began to see him in a new light, recognizing the value of his presence and the importance of accepting those who are different. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the whispering woods, the spirit of Leela seemed to linger in the air. The villagers gathered at the edge of the woods, their hearts heavy with loss, but also filled with a glimmer of hope. Elara, the village elder, stood before them, her voice steady and clear. "We have all learned a valuable lesson from this tragedy," she said. "We must choose love over hate, understanding over vengeance. Leela's life was cut short, but her spirit will always be with us, reminding us of the importance of compassion and kindness. The villagers nodded in agreement, their eyes glistening with tears. Leela had been a bright and joyful young woman, always willing to lend a helping hand or offer a warm smile. Her untimely death had left a void in their community, but they were determined to honor her memory by living their lives with the same kindness and compassion that she had always shown. As Elara spoke, the wind seemed to carry her words through the trees, and the villagers felt a sense of peace wash over them. They knew that Leela's spirit would always be with them, guiding them and reminding them of the importance of love and understanding. In the days and weeks that followed, the villagers made a conscious effort to live their lives in a way that would make Leela proud. They reached out to those in need, offered words of encouragement, and showed kindness to all living things. And with each act of compassion, they felt Leela's spirit smiling down on them, and they knew that she would always be with them in their hearts. One day, as the sun was setting over the whispering woods, the villagers gathered at the edge of the forest once more. They held hands and closed their eyes, remembering Leela and all the joy she had brought into their lives. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the villagers felt Leela's spirit among them, and they knew that she would always be there, guiding them and inspiring them to live their lives with love and kindness. In the hushed stillness of the forest, a young boy named Galamkin, who had shared a special bond with Leela, stepped forward, his heart thundering in his chest. With tears glistening in his eyes, he raised his voice, making a solemn vow. "I will honor Leela's memory by safeguarding those who play in these woods," he declared. "I will strive to be a steadfast friend to all, just as she was, spreading kindness and joy wherever I go." A wave of emotion washed over the villagers as they exchanged meaningful glances. One by one, they nodded their heads in agreement, their faces etched with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. Eric, who had once been consumed by the desire for revenge, stepped forward, his voice filled with a newfound sincerity. "I was blinded by my anger," he admitted. "I realize now that vengeance will not bring Leela back. We must learn to forgive, to heal, and to move forward. Leela would want us to embrace life and live in peace, and I am committed to honoring her memory by doing just that." As the villagers stood together in the fading light, a sense of unity and purpose enveloped them. They knew that Leela's spirit would continue to guide them, reminding them of the importance of love, forgiveness, and understanding. And so, they made a pact to honor her memory by living their lives in a way that would make her proud. From that day forward, the villagers worked together to create a community where kindness prevailed and conflicts were resolved peacefully. They established a tradition of storytelling, sharing tales of Leela's bravery, compassion, and unwavering love. Her memory became a beacon of light, inspiring them to be the best versions of themselves. And as the years passed, Leela's spirit continued to live on in the hearts of the villagers. Her legacy served as a constant reminder that even in the darkest of times, love can triumph over hate, and forgiveness can heal wounds that once seemed insurmountable. As time wove its intricate tapestry, the Whispering Woods experienced a profound metamorphosis. Galamkin, once an isolated and misunderstood creature, emerged as a revered figure among the villagers. His journey from isolation to acceptance became a symbol of redemption and hope, igniting a spark of transformation within the hearts of all who knew him. Children, drawn to Galamkin's gentle nature, flocked to the woods, filling the air with their infectious laughter. Their presence brought an unprecedented harmony between the village and the Whispering Woods, creating a bond that extended beyond the physical realm. The villagers, too, embraced Galamkin as one of their own, recognizing the depth of his compassion and the wisdom that lay beneath his rough exterior. In the heart of the forest, Galamkin found a sanctuary where he could finally be himself. The trees whispered secrets to him, sharing their ancient stories and offering him solace. He came to understand that love, like a delicate flower, had the power to bloom even in the darkest of places. Through his experiences, he discovered that forgiveness held the ability to heal even the deepest wounds, mending broken souls and restoring hope. Thus, Galamkin became more than just a guardian of the Whispering Woods. He became a symbol of the unwavering spirit that resided within every living being. His presence served as a reminder that even in the face of tragedy and heartbreak, there was always a path to redemption. And so, in the whispering woods, where the trees whispered secrets and the air was filled with laughter, Golemkin found his place. He was a friend to all who sought him, a guardian of the forest's secrets, and a living testament to the transformative power of love and forgiveness. His story became a legend, passed down through generations, inspiring hope and reminding all who heard it that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of light to be found. Years later, as the sun set over Eldergrove, the villagers gathered to celebrate the Festival of Lights, a tribute to Leela's memory. Golemkin stood among them, his heart full as he watched the children play, their laughter echoing through the woods. He had learned that life is fragile, that love can be both a blessing and a burden, and that even the darkest of paths can lead to light. And in that moment, as the stars twinkled above, he whispered one word to the wind: run. Run toward love, toward understanding, and toward a future where kindness reigns,